In the Old Testament, we hear of idols, and idols are genuinely made fun of and pointed as a mockery by Israel. But was there actually something behind idols? Could there actually be demons? Could there be gods or fallen angels that are represented behind those idols? This is what we're going to explore today on Christ Revisited. So, when I was a kid, probably the most impressionable spiritual story of my life, which happened when I was around 12 years old in 6th grade, was my father revealed to me that his wife had been possessed by a demon. And he described the experience of her transforming her personality from the one that we knew to this other personality as she had a drinking problem and she would drop into this personality. And my dad actually had a dialogue or conversation with this personality, and he asked it what its name was. And those who are familiar with the Bible might recognize the name Legion. That was the name that was given to my father. And this made quite an impression on me as a young kid, certainly not having grown up with a strong sense of religious fervor or piety. Just hearing that experience happened to my dad and his teaching to me that if I had used the name Jesus Christ to call upon this demon and to cast it away or to send it away by the power of the name alone, it would happen. And my dad used that name, that of Jesus Christ, and that demon did flee. God is constantly mocking in the Old Testament those other nations that don't follow the God Yahweh, the God of Isaac, Abraham, and Jacob. This is why he mocks the idols. He mocks those gods who have limited powers. He mocks those who sit in Nebuchadnezzar's chambers as the king of Babylon and attempt to interpret dreams, but when challenged to say, what was my dream even about? Only Daniel, from the God of Yahweh, is able to genuinely say what that dream was about. We see examples of this with Elijah, where he challenges all of the priests of Baal, hundreds of them, together to send down fire upon the altar, and none are capable of doing that. Throughout the Old Testament, we have so many examples. God is constantly giving faithful expression to the unique position of Israel. When I was in Taiwan, during a Chinese holiday, we had a visit to a Chinese temple where a woman who was dressed in a robe was being brought across the way up into the temple as she ascended the stairs, with the men surrounding her, and she was basically in an ecstatic frenzy. And our friend and guide said, oh yeah, she has the ghost possessed in her. The idea of some kind of demonic possession exists in the ancient world. And strangely enough, Socrates actually called his daemon as the point of his inspiration, daemon, for the ideas that he received. So these kinds of ideas, not only in the ancient Greek world, Chinese world, throughout Africa, shamanic traditions, constantly there's this certain intermediary person who goes and potentially works with certain spirits to gain information, to gain insight, and shamanic traveling involves all of this. So the question is, what is going on this other side? This is why Israel specifically, when throughout the Old Testament literature, points to idols, and the idols are what we might call pointing to specific principalities or geographical locations. And these geographical locations are referenced as the 70 gods of the nations. When the Most High divided the nations, he fixed their borders according to the number of the sons of God. God stands in the divine council. He judges among the gods. are taking specific principalities uh, as their domain or dominion. The best example has to do with in the book of Daniel, when Daniel asks a prayer, and there's actually the two most famous angels fighting against this named prince of Persia. And it took them, I believe, a month to for Gabriel to actually arrive and to answer the request of Daniel. And this gives a very perfect example of this specific issue of the gods taking on specific domains. When we get into the New Testament, we see many examples of possession. Christ, probably one of the most famous, is when he casts these demons, legion, in fact, the name, or which means many, into a herd of swine, who then run over the cliff. For all the gods of the nations are demons. And in Deuteronomy 4:19, God warns against the worshiping the hosts of heaven, which are allotted to other peoples. So in all of these cases, what we see is that these gods certainly do exist, but they are created rebellious spirits. And the big differences we see between Israel and all of the other nations is all of those gods of the other nations are created gods with very limited dominions. And that's really the difference between Israel and what Israel is constantly in the prophecies of the Old Testament, there to show that there is this higher God, and to show this light to the Gentiles, and to reveal this to the Gentiles, knowing that at some point the Gentiles would realize that the God of Israel is the same God of creation, and of all peoples.